The German armored vanguard had taken a beating and was forced to pull back. They established a defensive line, suitable for their heavy guns, and hunkered down to wait for the main force to catch up. Punching through the Soviet defenses and racing to Moscow hadn't worked. The Red Army put up a much greater fight than anticipated. What should have been a quick offensive now threatened to become a long, drawn-out struggle. In this battle, we decided on an attacker-defender scenario with the Germans as defenders. We rolled the defense line scenario again, and the Germans spent a lot of points on fortified positions and a big gun. There were 3 objectives, one behind the trenches, one in the open between the fortified positions, and one on top of a steep hill. The Germans started with most of the forces on the table. Just 2 Panzer IVs and the senior officer remained in the reserves. The infantry platoon started in a long trench in the middle, flanked by 2 MG nests. A Panzer IV hid behind one of the MG nests. An 88 stayed in the rear with view of the battlefield, and a sniper held the flank, hiding in a dugout. The Soviets started with a small probing force of a sniper, an AT gun, the senior officer, and the NKVD detachment. The Germans were outscouted, but started in control of 2 objectives. There were no airplanes in the sky at this moment, and they had more than enough orders to activate all their troops. The sniper took aim, but the MG nest sprung their ambush. They needed 5s to spot him, and 5s to hit. The spotter went down and the sniper was pinned. The AT gun was deployed behind the hill. It then opened fire on the MG nest. First area fire, which pinned them, and then a direct shot, which missed. The rest stayed hidden behind the hill, waiting for the armor. The Germans started with 11 orders. The Panzers swung around to better see the approaching enemy, and several infantry squads went into ambush while waiting for the attack. The MG team at the end opened fire on the gun. They fired twice, looking for 5s to hit. The next squad followed suit. The gun was obscured by the hill, so they needed to spot it. And they did. The first salvo scored 4 hits. No saves. And the crew was pinned. The second salvo scored 3 hits. And wiped out the rest of the crew. The second MG team in line tried to take out the sniper, but they were unable to spot him. The Germans then decided to unpin their units before passing the turn to the Soviets. Again, they had more orders than they could use. The gun's tow truck turned around and drove away to safety. And afraid of the defense line, the rest stayed low, and the Soviets passed their turn. The Germans got 10 orders, but didn't have much to spend them on. One by one, the infantry squads able to do so tried to take out the sniper. They needed a 5 to spot him, but for some reason we thought it was 6. The entire right flank went into ambush, and another turn was over. Now the Soviets started getting some reinforcements. Another 11 orders should be enough to start the attack. They started with sending the KV-2 forward, triggering the ambush of the Panzer and the 88. The 88 failed to spot it at first, but then found its target. But the shot missed. The Panzer found the target, but needed 6 to hit. The tank tried to suppress the MG nest with its own MG fire, needing a 5, but they had a 3-up cover. An infantry squad moved up to attack the trench, but triggered an ambush. They were spotted and took 1 hit. The morale held, and they weren't spotted again. With area fire, they needed a 4 to pin the closest MG team. Another squad did the same. Their shooting was better. The Germans sat comfortably in cover. The NKVD detachment disembarked and opened fire on the MG nest. They started with area fire, but again the Germans were saved by cover. They spotted the target for direct fire. They scored 4 hits. 1 went through, and the team was pinned again. The Germans had 12 orders. The 88 didn't get any help from its extra loaders, but took aim at the BT-7. It spotted it, but missed. But the second shot was good. It needed to beat a 4 to destroy it. Having no chance to scratch the KV-2, the Panzer went into ambush. The MG team took up the fight against infantry. They spotted fine, needed 5s. They tried again, and did a little better. 2 men went down, but their morale was good. The next squad also fired. They had some trouble spotting, but barely managed to get out a salvo and hit twice. Another 2 men went down, but their morale still held. Another MG team opened up on them. They spotted, and another 2 hits were scored. The unit was reduced to a single man, but he refused to run. The command squad went into ambush, and with nothing more to do, the Germans ended their turn. 3 more units arrived from reserve, and the Soviets got 8 orders. They issued a stall order, and the newly arrived BT-7s rushed forward. As soon as the tanks crossed the first bridge, the Panzer IV sprung its ambush. The first tank was spotted and hit. An 8 was needed to destroy it. But the one behind was now hidden in the black smoke. The front BT-7 opened with its MG on the 88, looking for a 6 to pin it. The one on the bridge did the same to the sniper. The area fire was effective, but it was saved by the cover. The KV-2 trundled forward and fired to suppress the MG team in the trench. It needed a 5. The last survivor of the infantry squad ran and hid behind the burning wreck. An infantry squad behind the hill opened fire on the machine gun nest. They needed 5s to spot the target. They fired and scored 6 hits. The poor machine gunners were completely obliterated. The NKVD detachment went into ambush, and with nothing more to do, the Soviets passed the turn to the Germans again, who received 10 orders, more than they needed. The 88 fired on the approaching tanks. The loader team did their job, giving it 3 shots. It spotted the tank in the smoke, but missed. It did not have a clear shot on the one on the bridge. And the third shot completely missed the KV-2. The Panzer IV tried to help. It spotted the first, but the shell flew above the target. Then it spotted the second, and the shell whizzed past again. 2 squads went back into ambush, while the MG team at the end tried to take care of the sniper. This time we realized that 5 was indeed enough to spot it. But they needed 6s to hit at that range. 1 hit, and that was enough. That was it for the Germans, and it was time for a timed barrage. 4 guns roared in the distance, and the center of the battlefield was pummeled by explosions. 5 indirect hits were allocated to the defenders. Threes were needed to pin the squads, but they all had 3 up cover. As the last of the dirt rained down on the soldiers, most of them had survived, and only 1 unit was pinned. The Soviets only got 1 unit from reserves, and another BT-7 came rolling onto the battlefield. They then rolled 9 orders. Stahl, Stahl, Stahl was ordered again, and the BT-7s went on the offensive. The fresh tank used area fire on the MG team. The BT-7 fired on the 88, needing a 6 to pin it. The last tank also fired on the 88. And it was pinned. The KV-2 moved up to fire directly at the nearest rifle squad. It spotted them and scored 1 hit. 1 man was lost, but morale held. The infantry stayed hidden, and it was time for another timed barrage. 4 210mm howitzers were ranged in on the hill. The 4 units suffered 2 direct and 5 indirect hits. The NKVD detachment took 7 hits and needed 6s to save. They avoided being wiped out, and 2 men remained. Their morale held. The rifle squad took 6 hits. and made 3 saves. Their morale was very good. The indirect hits caused pins on a 2-up. The NKVD detachment was pinned. The jeeps were fine. But the officer was pinned. And so was the rifle squad. And then the Panzers arrived. Eight orders were rolled. The first was spent on a tactical coordination on the 88. They passed their experience test. The 88 then opened fire with an extra shot from the loader team. The BT-7s were the target, needing 5s to hit the closest 2 and 4 up to destroy. Shells slammed into the second tank as well, creating another wreck. A 6 was needed to hit the last one. The 2 Panzer IVs moved up, keeping the hill between themselves and the KV-2. And the 3rd Panzer IV took aim at the last BT-7, looking for a 6 to hit, but needing 9 to penetrate. The shot bounced off, but the crew was unshaken. The second shell flew off into the distance. The MG team on the end tried to get a shot on a lone soldier hiding behind the wreck, but were unable to spot him. The Germans didn't have any more to do, and to their surprise, the whistling whine of incoming artillery shells could be heard yet again. 2 direct and 6 indirect hits rocked the German line. Needing 3 up, the artillery caused 6 hits on the MG team, but they all made their saves. Only 2 hits on the rifle squad, and both saved. Again, 3s were needed to pin the infantry, and they had 3 up saves. Another squad was pinned, but there was still one more barrage to resolve. It caused 6 indirect hits, and a new round of pinning tests began. The last barrage left 3 units pinned, weakening the defensive line for a while. More reinforcements arrived, and they rolled 7 orders. The BT-7 rolled up to fire at the squad still in ambush. It spotted them and scored 2 hits. 1 man was killed, and the rest went beyond the call of duty. They fired at the only soft target I could see, but it was out of range. The KV-2 tried the same, but it was unable to spot the squad. The Soviet infantry started advancing while firing area fire on the defenders. The light mortar in the corner fired at the trench. It eventually spotted the target, but was found to be out of range. The Soviets then removed the pins caused by the artillery. 10 orders, and the Germans resumed shooting at the tanks. The 88 didn't get any extra shots, so it fired once at each target, needing 2s to spot the obscured tanks. The Panzer IV fired its last AP shell, and wasted it completely. The rifle squad opened fire on the front squad. They spotted them and scored a single hit. The casualty didn't bother the rest of the squad. The Germans shot again, but missed. The MG team fired at each of the squads. It spotted the first squad and missed completely. It spotted the second one and scored 2 hits. 2 men went down, and the rest went beyond the call of duty. They fired back at the MG team, but couldn't spot them. One of the Panzer IVs drove up to engage the BT-7. But a shell flew straight past it. The other one drove around the other side of the hill to get a side shot of the KV-2. But another AP shell was sent flying into the countryside. The senior officer opened fire on the BT-7, looking for a 6 to hit, but 10 to penetrate. But now the Germans needed to unpin their infantry. The Soviets still had reinforcements to bring on. And they got 9 orders. The KV-2 swung its heavy turret around to fire at the Panzer IVs, hitting the first on 4 and the second on 5. The powerful shell went straight through the tank, leaving only twisted metal. With a yell of "Oora, Oora," the infantry surged towards the trenches. And the ambushes were sprung. The first squad didn't spot the attackers. The sniper spotted, but was just out of range. The MG nest had no trouble spotting, but needed 6s to hit. And the infantry rush continued. The jeeps left the battle, but the BT-7 joined it. It took aim at the Panzer IV, spotted it, but missed. The Germans got 15 orders and were eager to start shooting. The 88 had 2 shots and aimed at the BT-7. Both missed. The senior officer drove up and fired at the same target. Hit. This time the shot bounced off the armor. The tank got beyond the call of duty. It kept its aim on the Panzer IV, spotted once and twice, but missed once and twice. The Panzer IV fired twice at the KV-2, needing 4s to hit, but 11 to penetrate the thick armor. Both tank and crew were fine. The Panzer opened fire on the nearest squad. It spotted, but needed 6s to hit. Our rifle squad fired the same target. They scored 2 hits, killing 2 men. The command squad did the same and scored 4 hits. Three men went down, but the rest stayed in the fight. They scored another 2 hits, and only 1 man remained of the squad. But they still didn't run. The MG team fired on the hill. Scoring 2 hits, killing 1. The reduced rifle squad fired first on the hill, but didn't spot, and once on the front squad, getting 2 hits, killing another man. The next MG team fired first on the front squad, and then on the squad behind them. Killing 2 more men, and finally someone routed. That was all the shooting they had. The Germans removed more pins to get some more guns into the fight. The rest of the Soviet reinforcements arrived. And I got 8 orders. They started by telling the KV-2 to fire once on the Panzer IV. It hit the front and needed 7 to destroy the target. It then opened with its MG on the already reduced rifle squad. 2 hits were scored, and only 1 save was made. The unit was pinned. The light mortar fired twice at the MG team, but needed 4 to spot it. The commander yelled "Ura" and some of the infantry rushed forward. While the rest covered them by firing at the MG team. They spotted and scored 3 hits. 1 went through, and the team was pinned. They managed to spot them again and scored another 3 hits. The squad was wiped out. More infantry was brought forward. The surviving squad member ran behind the hill, and a supply truck drove up towards the KV-2. The squad on the hill fired area fire at the trenches. They succeeded on the first salvo, but the target was saved by cover. Their second salvo was ineffective. 8 orders for the Germans. And the Stuka could be heard diving towards the field of battle. With 1 tank out of ammo and most of the others destroyed, all they had to do now was mop up the infantry to secure a victory. The 88 was aimed at the last BT-7. It spotted the target, but missed. It spotted again. Solid hit. 4 up was needed to destroy it. We stopped for a second to discuss if moved in the last turn referred to the Soviets' turn or in the Germans' last turn. We decided that since the senior officer moved in his last turn, he technically was a static target and could therefore be the victim of a mine strike. That turned out to be a bad decision for the Germans, as the tank was blown to smithereens. With their senior officer brutally killed, the Germans were shocked into a full rout. By now, their offensive push had been severely blunted. With no hope of holding back the waves of Soviet soldiers, the survivors would have to run to link up with the Wehrmacht's main forces, all the while being hounded by the Red Army's fast-moving tanks.